Hello everyone. Hanukkah begins tonight for our brothers and sisters in Israel. It actually begins probably right about now or even 15 minutes ago. So let's get right into it. This Torah is based on a shir I heard from Rabbi Bernstein about 2 years ago. So I'll try to share with you and hopefully you'll appreciate the ideas. So it begins with an idea, with a question posed by the Beit Yosef. That's Rabbi Yosef Karo, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law. Lived about 500 years ago. Now, his question is this. Given that we light candles on Hanukkah for 8 days, why do we do that? Because of the miracle of the Pach HaShemen, right? Because of the jar of oil. The jar of oil that once the Maccabees reconquered or retook the temple, right? We want to rededicate it. And to do so, we need to light the menorah. So all we had left was one jar of oil that was kosher, that had the seal of the Kohen Gadol, and it was only meant to last for 1 day. But miraculously, it lasted for 8 days. Now, the problem here is, then why do we light for 8 days? Well, seemingly because the miracle lasted for 8 days, but really it didn't. And Ben Yosef asks, why do we light for 8 days when really the miracle lasted for only 7 days? Because after all, we did have 1 day of oil. That's just the normal, natural thing. Then we had 7 days of miracle when it shouldn't have lasted. So really, Hanukkah should be 7 days. That's his question, and there are hundreds of answers, but I'll share one with you that Rav Bernstein shares by the Pri Chadash, that actually he says there were 2 miracles. There was the miracle of the Pach HaShemen for 7 days, but that first day, we actually commemorate the victory of the war. The war was also a miracle, and it's important to realize that. But now that we know that, now that we have our freedom, what do we do with it? That's the question. Because after all, Jews don't actually believe that freedom for freedom's sake, that's not a value for us, right? That's a very Western concept. And just to give some halachic or legal ramifications to this, is Rabbi Tatz actually bringing this up. Rabbi Tatz is a surgeon. He was trained in South Africa. I think he actually did his residency at WashU in St. Louis and Missouri. And he brings up, and he's qualified to say so, that really in Western society, in Western medicine, that patient autonomy is actually the prime value, right? If the patient wants it, then it's good. If he doesn't want it, then we can't do it because he has the right to choose. This even comes out if the patient, say, doesn't want to receive a blood transfusion that he needs to save his life, he's allowed to do that. Patient autonomy. He has the right to do whatever he wants. Freedom uber alles, freedom over everything else. That is categorically not true for Judaism. We do not value that. We value life over your freedom. So if a patient comes and he can have a life-saving blood transfusion and he says, I don't want to do this, then we don't care. And I think that's actually true. I think that actually is a law, to our amazing credit and to Israel's amazing credit, that they actually take on what's called a Jewish law in this way. And if a patient doesn't want to receive a life-saving treatment, then we force it on him, because who are you to choose if you're not going to choose to save your own life? We don't listen to that. Okay. So now that we know that, now that we've established that freedom for freedom's sake is not a value in Judaism, now that we've rededicated, now that we've recaptured the temple, what do we do with it, right? We've banished the Greeks from here. What do we do? So we actually saw this message addressed. In Pesach, our very first Chag, our first holiday, once we were redeemed from Egypt, we're no longer slaves. So what do we do with our freedom? Immediately, as of the second day of Pesach, we begin counting. We begin counting up the Omer to Shavuot, and you receive the Torah, right? We're supposed to have freedom with a purpose. And that is one of the central messages of Hanukkah, maybe even the central message, because Israel, the Jews, saw Greece, the idea of Greece, as a means to an end, right? Greece valued beauty, valued beauty very highly. They're the ones who effectively started the arts. They, I think, wrote the first plays. They actually invented the Olympics and the human body, to glorify the human body, because the athletes used to compete naked to show off the bodies that they had. But Judaism doesn't see it like that. We're like, beauty is an important value, but it's not a value unto itself. What we do is we take beauty and we actually dedicate it to something else. We see it with a purpose. Because amazingly, in Shas, in the Gemara, the only time we ever speak about the idea of mahadran, which means a beautification of anything, of a mitzvah, is by Hanukkah. That's the first time the idea of mahadran ever creeps up. Now we see mahadran everywhere. You're going to see mahadran kosher, you're going to see mahadran this, mahadran that, But originally, the whole idea of Mahadran actually came into Hanukkah. Because now, and this is so well integrated into Hanukkah, we don't even notice it. Because really, the basic halacha, what you need to do for the candle lightings, is every night just light one candle. That's it. That's all you need to do. Even it comes to the point where on Hanukkah, your candles need to burn for at least about 30 minutes. If 30 minutes or longer, that's the minimum. If none of your candles last for 30 minutes, trouble, right? You haven't fulfilled the mitzvah. Now, amazingly, as long as one candle remains, even on the last night when you're burning 8 candles, if as long as one candle stays lit for over 30 minutes, then you're good. Why? Because that's the basic halacha. That's the mitzvah, right? That's the reason why. But then we have a level of mahadran over that you light one candle for each person in your house. So if there are 6 people in your house, then every night you light 6 candles. But then we have the mahadran min mahadran, the beautification of the mitzvah. And what's that? It's what we do now. We light 1 candle on the first night, that's tonight, 2 candles on the second night, etc. Because this whole idea of beautification is really introduced and is brought to the fore in Hanukkah. Now why? Because we took Greece's message and we dedicated it to a purpose. Amazing. That's what Rav says. And I just want to share one last idea before we go out. It's a nice quick idea, especially since we'll be saying it so often now. The song Ala Nisim, or the prayer Ala Nisim, right? So we say it on Hanukkah and we say it on Purim. They're a little bit different. So here we go. So in the Ala Nisim for Hanukkah, we go through, there are 2 interesting comments that differ slightly from one another. That is to say, when we mention that God's name is great and holy. So about halfway through it says, Lecha asita Hashem gadol v'kadosh ve'olamecha. So you made your great and holy name in your world. And then later on, really at the very end, the last 4 words, V'noda l'shimcha gadol sela. And we'll thank your great name. Great. What happened to Kadosh? What happened to the holiness? So we see the following, that when we speak about L'chasit Hashem Gadol v'Kadosh be'olamecha, your great and a holy name, and the Kadosh name, why do we need to say that? Because what just came before was the victory, the military victory over the Greeks. Now what happens there is often some people take these military victories as Kochi ve'otam yadi, right? This came from the might of our hand, it was good strategy, it was us, this is a natural victory, God had nothing to do with this. And therefore, the prayer has to say, Hagadol, your great name, because we won, V'akadosh, and the holy name. This was a miracle, there was a miracle here. And then later on, when we talk about, now we lit the candles, then we need to get to the temple, then we could say, V'nodol Hashem Hagadol, your great name. We don't need to say Kadosh, because that is obviously Kadosh. We recognize that intrinsically. That's not a difficult message for us to point out. So we see that nuance of us trying to highlight that even like a natural victory is really miraculous within the prayer. Have a happy Hanukkah and enjoy lighting. We'll see you later this week with the Parsha.